Hello and welcome to Farmers After Hours, a special project of the Michigan Foundation for Agriculture and Farm Bureau family of companies. We're excited to have you joining us for our Rural Access, Wellness, and You iteration of the series, and pleased to have three farmers from Michigan, joining to talk about the topic at hand. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and have them introduce themselves, starting with Rita, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rita Herford. I'm from Huron County, farm in the east side of Huron-Stanislaus counties. We grow sugar beets, wheat, dry beans, and corn, some rye. And I'm married to a farmer who has the same to do, plus beef cattle. And we have two daughters, 5 and 2, and expecting our third, so.
Okay, my name's Dave Wachowski. I live in Midland County, farm kind of Midland in the west edge of Bay. Sugar beets, edible beans, corn, alfalfa, and we have a cow-calf beef operation as well. My wife and I have 3 children, 14, 16, and 18. And I happen to work off the farm as well, so we rarely run out of things to do.
And I'm Ashley. I am also a Huron County farmer. My husband and I are dairy farmers from just outside of Bad Axe, Michigan. But then we also grow corn, hay, and we also have a dairy beef operation. And so we have plenty to keep busy, along with 2 daughters, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So, like everyone, hands full.
Sounds like everyone has their hands full and life is busy. So thanks so much for taking time this evening to join us and share sort of your experiences and your community's experience with rural access and wellness. Your time is certainly appreciated, and we're excited to have some folks tuning in with us this evening as well. So I guess the first question that's come in is, can we talk a little bit about the ways your local community potentially struggles with rural access? So rural access not being limited just to broadband, but potentially talking about broadband, care, some of the essential things like grocery stores, and maybe like gyms and physical activity, connectivity with your neighbors. Go ahead, and whoever wants to hop in first, feel free.
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, I think, like mentioned, it's important that it's not just broadband, but we just live in a very rural communities. So, like if you mentioned fitness or things like that, in our area, like you don't just go join a workout group or different workout classes and things like that. Through the winter, I've been like kind of wanting to do something like that, but in a group setting, it's like 8 a.m., 10 a.m., like it's the senior citizens groups. Just because there's not a lot of options, and like I get it because there's probably less participation than in a big city where you could fill classes all day long with, participants. So that's one thing that I've recently noticed and kind of thought to myself about, like, I wonder if my friends in the city, they can drop in at the Y at 5 o'clock and pick whatever class they would want to attend.
It's interesting you bring that up, to take this maybe to a younger age group in some of these rural communities like in ours, where I'm at. I'm kind of sandwiched between, say Midland and Mount Pleasant, but even in those areas, getting participation in high school athletics and high school groups, just even, any kind of after school curricular, not just athletics, but to get people to participate and have access to it, just because, it's like you say, it's not just a Zoom meeting or something, but it's transportation. And especially with younger people, that means not only do you have to get there, but you probably have to have somebody help you get you there. So yeah, I think a lot of that, it starts at a young age potentially, and then I think it just kind of builds as we get older, because you feel like, well, I can't do this or I can't do that because I never really have had the opportunity. So I think just having access to a variety of different resources is a struggle.
Yeah, I would say to kind of play off both of them, especially because I live close to Rita. Rita and I are in the same county. A lot of these kinds of things outside of like something like broadband that's infrastructure related, a lot of it is very much so you have to search out and you have to find what you're looking for. And sometimes that's challenging, and sometimes that means you have to do driving and, all of those kinds of things. It's very much so like a self reliant thing versus, things just being very open and accessible and easy.
Actually, you bring up a good point, broader than the conversation we've had thus far. You talk about infrastructure and real access in that space. Anything you want to expand on that area?
Like on the infrastructure part, so yeah, we don't, for the most part, have broadband readily available in our area. Unless you're one of the lucky people to live on like a main drag and you happen to live there when they were installing like broadband or fiber, and you paid the money, that's right now, those are the only people that have something like broadband. But it's potentially coming to our area. Our local electric co-op they said that they're going to start running it this year. And it'll be all through our 3-county area, but it's going to take a while. It's not going to happen tomorrow. So it's coming, but it's just something that we've never had the opportunity before.
Yeah, exactly. And like me and Kate talking earlier, I'm like, I think my internet's okay, but maybe I don't know what good internet is. I don't know. Like, it works most of the time, but I also live 3 miles outside of town. And our farm, we put up, we had problems getting internet there, so we put one of their towers on top of our grain leg. So that helped that problem out. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that I just feel like I don't know what I'm missing out on.
I believe part of the issue, I was a little tardy today, is we were trying to hook up cameras to our calving barn, and just in downloading firmware updates for the cameras, I think I used most of my data allowance. So luckily our cycle is like in 2 days. Because I think that was, honestly part of the issue I had connecting to this very meeting, because I'm buffering or being throttled on what we have for a data package. So, and it's a fair amount of money for, not what today's needs are demanding. You don't get a disc in the mail to upload, or everything's downloaded off the internet. And when you have to do that for a systems update, be it technology for your tractors or your harvesters or planter monitors or anything, that takes a lot of information usually or data to move that around, and you can burn through a lot of allowance very quickly. And we all know we need to work every day of the month, not just the first week when we got good internet. So that can be quite frustrating for sure.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, Dave. Like everything is through the internet anymore. So I do a lot of the office work on our farm, and I would say like 3/4 of our billing and stuff has all went to voicemail, email, or invoices are all emailed. Your statements are emailed. My dentist the other day to get my kids to a new dentist appointment. All that was digital. Their patient history, all of that. The bill came digital in the email. The other day, my brother stole the router from the farm. His broke, and I had nothing to do in the office because it was like I need my email for everything. So it's kind of crazy how everything is switching that way, you know, like nothing's in the mail anymore.
So another thing that sort of percolates to the top when talking about rural access is access to healthcare specialists in folks that it doesn't require a several hour drive, in telemedicine being part of that. Anyone have any experience in that space that they're willing to share?
I guess I'll say all of my pregnancies have been high risk, and so I had to drive to Saginaw weekly at least, some weeks twice a week for appointments. I spent a lot of time away from the farm, which is why we will only have 2 children and no more, because we spend, not only is it expensive, like you can drive to Saginaw at least once a week, and that's an hour and 20 minutes. So yeah, that's hard. And I mean, lots of people have babies up here, and I'm not the first one to have a high risk pregnancy. So there's a decent number of us that do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know sometimes even we're helping take care of an elderly uncle, and even just communication with either his insurance companies or, all that is, it's not only online based, but especially in the last 12 months here, right? And it's especially because he's a distance away, so you don't just stop in. You can't even go to a healthcare provider to, just see him or to get a signature because they haven't let you in the door for the last 12 months. So, just getting around and having access right now physically to even see somebody is quite difficult, as several people are working remote and whatnot. So
I do like, especially like as a busy parent, like the telehealth model, because sometimes there are just silly things that your insurance company makes you get an appointment about, and they're like, great, let's do it via telehealth, and it takes like 5 minutes, and it's fantastic. But again, it's even the one time my doctor's office had trouble connecting to me. Like, they were having internet issues, and they're like right in town, and they're an office that does everything online. Everything is digital today, nothing is written down. And it was just like, oh, I feel better. You guys are having issues, so do I. Like on the daily.
Yeah, I'll go back to what Kate said about like specialists being available and driving. I know like we have hospitals in our area, but I don't know, I guess if I had any real health risks, I would be driving 2 or 3 hours. Just because I feel like it's hard to get quality doctors to stay in our areas, and especially on a specialist level, if you need a specific doctor. And I don't think any doctors I know who are long-term here are ones that either have ties to the area or grew up to the area. But doctors come and go in our areas so often, like they'll come do a residency and leave. So I don't know if that's that they're used to the city and having access to Starbucks and all the, quick things around the neighborhood. I don't know. But it seems like no one stays. Like they come and go. And me and Ashley are up in the Thumb, so there's nothing around here. Like you drive to go to anything. And I guess that's just how we grew up in a way of life for me. But I feel like it's a double-edged sword. That's what I like about it. I like that we know everybody and it's a small knit community, and there's 2 houses on my mile. I don't think I would want it to be the suburbs. So for me it's just that's how it is. You're gonna drive, like it's gonna be a day to go to a specialist. Plan your day.
Great points, everyone. Thank you for sharing. Next question is, what's the biggest obstacle or factor that you think, sort of amplifies these struggles in relation to on-farm potential challenges?
What was that
I
last
just-
part again? I'm sorry.
That's okay. What's the biggest obstacle or factor that influences this struggle, potentially on farm or, in your family life?
My biggest thing is, like, especially being a dairy farmer, like, there's work to do 7 days a week. It can be hard to schedule these things in around things, especially like, when to go to the dentist, we're driving 30 minutes. To go see our general practitioner, we're driving 45 minutes to, find a doctor that we like and we appreciate. And so just everything takes so much more scheduling. It's not like I can just run 5 minutes into town and see who I want to see. So that is, just the logistics of making that happen and working around the things that have to get done and, making sure if I have to be gone, there's someone there to do the work that needs to get done. So from my aspect, like on farm life, to do those kinds of things, it just takes a lot of logistical, like there is a lot of mental labor that comes before even a very simple appointment.
Yeah, I'll tie onto that with just driving everywhere. We haven't touched on like grocery stores yet, but it's 20 minutes for me to go to the store just to drive there one way. We used to have a little store in town that was 2 miles from me if I needed, milk or something. But that closed this summer. So yeah, like grocery shopping, unless I do like curbside pickup, is 40 minutes just driving to and from the store. Things like that. And I guess I don't know in the city if that's your factor of traffic. So is that the equivalent? I always kind of think that way. My best friend lives in Chicago, and depending on the time of day, it takes that long to go 3 miles. Just because of traffic, where we're constantly moving, and it's always that time. So yeah, I don't know if I'm really answering anything, but definitely transportation.
Yeah, I think one thing I've kind of noticed as our farm's transitioning a little bit from the previous generation is a lot of people we work with in the farm, be it accountants or suppliers or certain agronomy groups, are very specialized, and even like our friends are at a personal level. I mean, they have their, I don't want to make this sound horrible, but they have their job, and generally it's fairly focused, and they kind of do the same thing most part until they decide to maybe take a different position within their company or something like that. And I know now, in agriculture, the banks and the finance people, they want a lot of information. They're like, well, it ain't that hard. Just, pull this off the balance sheet. Well, I think sometimes what causes a lot of stress to farmers or, neighbors of mine is they're like, man, goodness, they're asking for this again. Don't they know that we got to get the planter ready because it's nice out and, we got to go, I think so that starts weighing on guys when people we're using more technology, so they feel, well, it's easier to get information. But in a lot of ways, a lot of different vendors and that I think we work with as growers, we're asked a lot more information, be it regulatory for livestock operations and manure, for example, or for the way we're starting, with some of the fertilizers is going to get a little more specific of what we're using, where and why, and what information did you use to make that decision. So, and I know a fair number of people, they got into farming because they want to work in their shop and drive a tractor and kick the dirt in the spring and whatnot. And I know it seems to, unless you're fortunate to have someone to help you with some of those roles, um, that can get pretty stressful on individuals as they feel like they're, not being able to get everything accomplished because there's so many things. It's hard to stay focused, and then obviously the stress builds and whatnot. But again, that's kind of, I think, why we do what we do, because we don't want to do the same thing every day, right? So we're, it's hard to complain when we choose to do what we're doing. So.
Touche, sir. Okay. As we talk about this rural access issue, and there are just so many different facets and tentacles to this conversation, right? Rural access and wellness, a lot of those things go hand in hand, and they feed one another in many, many ways. We've talked a lot about the core sort of issues facing us in rural America, for lack of a better way of stating it. Who or what groups have you found that you can connect with to help advocate on behalf of rural America in these spaces, or to help make positive change?
So I think that's interesting in a way. There have been a few more groups pop up, at least in our area. I think part of it, because of COVID, it brought the idea of being isolated a little bit more, say working from home, or the stress of things like that. And I think there's more people in general who are struggling with that to some degree, or maybe, they lost some employment or whatnot. So, getting access to somebody, even knowing where to go. I think now, you look on, not that social media is by any stretch of the imagination a good place to go if you're struggling most times. But there's places there. At least you can find resources once in a while now, and you can find resources there if you with a Google search, where you can even like almost anonymously talk to folks just to be like, all right, am I really struggling, or am I having a pity party? Or, I mean, some of it's pride too, right? For some people, and they don't want to admit. So I think, not that I've gone to the internet necessarily, but I know through Farm Bureau, even there's some folks, and they're getting links to different blogs where people can get together and kind of, talk through a few things. And I think where I was kind of going, that, the Corona kind of helped bring some of this ahead, out to some degree, and it made it it brought more attention to the concept, and now I think it's more visible in general. So I think that is helping ag as well, especially given we've came off a couple of years that were a little tougher with weather and things.
Yeah, I think to kind of go off what Dave said, coronavirus has kind of brought things like mental health very much so to the forefront. Like before, there was still a big group of people who, especially in agriculture, didn't want to talk about it, even though there were a whole bunch of us that were talking about it and talking about the issues, not just in farmers, but in farm workers and veterinarians. And a lot of people didn't want to listen. And, this whole experience of being very cut off from people, even more than we normally are, us in agriculture, we are kind of, I guess, I don't know, lone rangers from a day-to-day basis, but we still have meetings to look forward to. We, can still get together with family, and coronavirus took the little bit away that, even the most introverted person probably enjoys and appreciates. And so I think now, everybody's listening and everybody's kind of paying attention to it, because they've all realized, wow, any one of us can and do suffer from mental health problems and mental illness, and it's not a problem. I know in the last, year, I have shared our community list. If anybody does not know where to go, I always tell people to start at your local school. Local schools have a list of every resource in your county and your township that's available to you. Everything from all of the dentists in your community to the county mental health, different aspects and organizations that are open to you, including a list of therapists in your area. So for fun, if there is anybody out there and you need anything, this isn't just mental health, this is any kind of health, wellness, community organization, anything. It's probably like a 90-page book from my county, and they can email it to you and you can start from there. So I've probably shared that resource more in the last year than I have shared it since I found out that it exists. So I always encourage people, Great Start programs or your local community school, they all have those resources.
So now I lost the question. We're just talking about resources. My kids came in my room. Yeah, I think it's well, like how Dave was saying with social media, not that I'm the one to Google like you have a problem in there, but I think that's where we can find other farmers and like-minded people that, maybe they live in the middle of South Dakota and you can relate then. And they're not like your neighbor next door where you want to tell them your life story and, all your drama, but someone you don't know to talk to. So that's kind of cool with social media. And then, yeah, that's all.
Thank you. It's great to know that there are resources, social media wise. Social media is both a curse and a blessing, right? Generally speaking, there are some wonderful things and great connectivity that can be found in that space. And then there are some, pieces that maybe aren't great for overall general wellness, but big picture, what we take away from that is also, in our control. So awesome resources there. And Ashley, thank you. I never thought of my local school district having such a complete list of wellness-based opportunities, right? I just wouldn't have thought that the local school would have access to a list of folks in the community that would be able to me from, a good dentist office for kids to, a counselor that I could talk to with my family.
I honestly didn't either until our second baby was a helmet baby. So if anybody else had a helmet baby, like, yeah, we're in the club. And so actually how that happened was my daycare brought up that my child had a flat head and she had some torticollis. So she was only turning her head to one side, which is pretty common. But we kind of thought something was weird, but we couldn't really put our finger on it, seeing our baby every day. And so they actually are the ones that introduced me to it. They said, okay, well, we're a Great Start program. So this is what we'll do. We'll send it to the county. They'll come evaluate her and then you can get your care for free. And then that is how I found out that all of these resources were open to me. I never would have known had my daycare not said, well, you could do it through insurance or you could do it free through the state since you go to this great Head Start program with your kids for daycare. So yeah, places like that. And I don't think that you even have to have a student there. You just contact your local school and say, hey, I need some help finding a resource in my community. I know that you guys have, you should have a list of everything and can I have it? So yeah, and it's pretty simple. It's part of what their job is as a member of the society and the community.
Yeah, I guess now that you say that, Ashley, I can agree with that. Like the local health departments and stuff for any kind of specialist. And the same with our youngest one. She was delayed talking and like they had a therapist come out to our house and this and that. And I think that's just like a good stepping stone. They can send you on to the right direction and give you resources from there. And even if kid related or not, I know we have great adult programs and stuff. And it's at least a phone number you can look up and call, and somebody, it's their job to put you in touch with the right people.
Yeah. Like, for example, I know in our county right now, I'm not sure if it's a statewide program, but if you call our Huron Behavioral Health and you say that you've been having trouble since COVID, you get 6 free therapy sessions. You know, our counties are doing all kinds of really unique things, but it's just sad because it's really hard for them to get out what they're doing. And so unless you're really in tune to that, it's really easy to miss it. So, you never know. You might contact and you might think it's going to cost you a small fortune, and it might be really affordable or free.
I think that is a holdback with some of the, like I stated in the intro, I do work off the farm as well, so I do have some health care through my employer, but I know a lot of farms, for example, maybe they don't have access to a lot of outside insurance. Sometimes maybe a spouse has access to it or something, but not always. And I think there's always from the folks that I know, there's always a concern like, well, I don't have insurance, so there's nothing available to me, and I can't, I'm not gonna pay $180 an hour to lay on a couch or something. But I have, for this call, I did a little looking into and called a few people, and they're like, there are resources available if you can call your community health folks, and they can help get you pointed in the right direction and things like that. So although I'm probably not super familiar with the whole program, what I've learned in the last few days is that it is available if you need it or you feel you want it, and do a little bit of investigating, you can find where you can get access to it.
Sometimes that's the hardest part, honestly, is figuring out who do you reach to get in contact or to be connected to the right resources. So really appreciate each of you being willing to share resources in your local communities that you're aware of, because sometimes the Google search just doesn't do things justice, right? And especially in a year where we've been so disconnected from one another, it's really nice to connect with a human being that is looking out for your best interest and is going to tell you, my kids went to this dentist office and it was awesome. Or I also had a plagiocephaly baby with some torticollis, and we used this physical therapist and they were phenomenal with my child, right? Like, and to that conversation, adults too, like, I don't want to go to physical therapy and not connect with whoever it is that's helping me through my running injury or whatnot. So that's really, really appreciated. And sometimes to this conversation, when we don't have ready access to those kinds of specialists or opportunities, it's easy to fail to remember or realize that we're really relatively fortunate. So thank you for being willing to share what's available in your communities, and hopefully it helps some folks who are tuning in this evening or will tune into the recording of this session. Looking big picture at all of the items that we've talked about this evening regarding rural access and wellness, is there a way that you guys could explain how these factors impact your overall stress levels and how you handle that stress?
Well, it's been a very interesting journey. So I guess to back up, I didn't say it in the beginning, and maybe I should have a little bit. When I had my second baby, it was an extremely traumatic birth. I'd lost a lot of blood, really felt terrible. 3 weeks after I had her, our main employee, who was like a brother, left work and took his own life. And then while we were at his funeral, we found out that my cousin, who was I think he was 24, died of an overdose. So this was all within a 4-week period. So to say that I struggled 2 years ago really badly with my mental health, and also being a dairy farmer through you know, like this never ending downturn that dairy lives through, it seems like, more years than not. It's been really hard. I really had to work hard to figure it out. And, you know, part of it is that you genuinely have to believe that you're worth it. And you have to say, I'm tired of living like this. I don't want to live like this forever. And I'm going to do something about it. So that's part of it. You know, that's the first step, is you have to believe that taking your health into your hands is worth it. Especially in a rural community, because it's extra hard to find resources. You know, it's not like we can just walk around the corner from our house and there's an amazing therapist there. You know, it's not the way it works. So I've done, you know, a lot of things from therapy, but I was a wannabe psychologist. So I think I probably was more obnoxious to my therapist than she actually helped me. So she was fantastic. But I just don't think it was for me. And so for me personally, I find that getting out of the house and finding things that are just for me, that have nothing to do with agriculture, have nothing to do with anything else, are my jam. So I spend the money and I go 3 days a week, and I have a personal trainer, and I go into the gym and I lift weights. Like I would say I'm a power lifter now, and I love it. I try to run at least 2 days a week. I've ran 4 half marathons, I think. I think that's the number that I'm at. And, you know, many other shorter races. And I also love that, you know, it gives me like a different sense of like mind cleansing and doing something for myself. And actually, I was driving home tonight from my adult tap class. So I took dance as a kid, and I thought I'd be crazy and also take adult tap now this year. So, you know, like those are just the things that I really enjoy and that have worked for me. What works for me doesn't work for everybody, but just taking that time to truly just like step away from it and being like, what will be, will be. The farm will be fine. Like, you know, we just went on a vacation last week, and it was the first time we'd gone anywhere in 4 years. And it was the first time my husband and I had gone somewhere without like any obligation since our honeymoon. So it had been way too long. And we just kind of looked at our employees and we're like, if the barn starts on fire, let the cows out. Like, but we're positive you will be fine. Like, we're just like, it'll be fine. And it was all fine, and it was fantastic. And so you just got to step away, because it's just insanely stressful to do what we do. And we love it, yes, but we all have things about our personality that are important and that express us outside of agriculture. And so find those things and embrace them, and, you know, and make sure you get enough sleep. That's my advice. Do stuff for yourself and get enough sleep.
I think from time to time, you know, as growers, we get looking at the big picture and worried about things that are, you know, 6 months from now or 3 months from now. And you know, I think there was a phrase: farmers are optimists, right? Because next year will be better, the crop will be better, the market will be better, whatever. But then, you know, you go to a shop in February where everyone's stressed out and losing their mind. You know, sometimes I think we just gotta take a step back and look at, all right, what am I going to accomplish today? What can I control today and accomplish that, and take it as a small win. I'm not saying I'm good at that myself, but it's something I'm working at. You know, because I think if you know, like we've talked all day, we talk about, you know, access to resources, or, well, I would go to the doctor, but it's a day and I don't have a whole day. And then, so now you're not feeling good again. And, you know, where sometimes you got to realize that, you know what, if I do take today, then I'll be good for tomorrow and the day after, and I won't be struggling for the next 3 days. So I think sometimes we just, you know, as even individuals, just, you know, set some achievable goals, and then just keep working your way up, and just don't drown yourself with all the things you maybe can and cannot control, and just start picking away at it.
Yeah, I'll take a step back and we'll talk about the year of COVID. It's been a year now, but I think living in a rural community, I just really had to embrace that. I felt so grateful that I live on 3 acres and could take my kids outside and play in our yard and go for walks down the road and not see anybody, not talk to anybody. We weren't locked in an apartment. My parents had an exchange student that is from Brazil and lives in Rio, and literally locked in a 200 square foot apartment. They had a balcony to go out on. So I think perspective is a lot. I firmly believe that you have to make your own happiness and just live the life you were given, and you got the cards you were dealt. But just being able to, like Ashley said, do things that make you happy. Get outside, and so when COVID hit, I stayed home with my kids for 3 weeks, and they went back to daycare, and then we were quarantined a few times, blah blah blah. But I don't do good staying home every day. After about day 3, I have to get out of the house. So it was a lot of making a schedule for myself. We were gonna get up, we were gonna be dressed by 9. And then we're gonna do this, and that. And it was fun things that I did with them, but it was just I needed a schedule. I couldn't live with not doing anything. So I had to make a schedule for myself. And so we started going worm hunting and digging in the mud and just doing fun, crazy things. But I think that was good for me, they had fun, but it was good for me to have something to do, and the weather started being nice. And I just remember always thinking in the back of my head, I'm so grateful we live where we live. And I'm so grateful that we are farmers, because then planting started and we could get to work and it was something else to think about. I know a lot of people who work in offices and they're still working from home. My sister has been working from home for a year, and she's got 3 little kids. And I think it's funny because my aunts and uncles and stuff too, they love it. Their kids are out of house, they're in their 50s, 60s. And I'm like, oh, this is so nice. And then my sister and people more with young kids, it's they're losing their minds, because that was their social life, was going to talk to their coworkers. Yeah, I this summer was grateful to have a job where I could get back to work and think about something else, and just have that I had to remind myself of that though, and I think that's just important too.
Thanks so much for sharing, each of you. It's very much so appreciated. As we come to near to our time to close this evening's session, is there one piece of advice, one tidbit that you would share with viewers tuning in tonight that you'd like them to take away from our conversation?
I guess I'll start. I think the big thing is, I hope that you'll take away from what I said to advocate for yourself and your health. You're worth it, and so take it seriously, and, find resources that are available to you, and get enough sleep. So those are my 2 things.
Yeah, I would say out of all the things we talked about, the discussion was to talk about the troubles with rural communities and having access. Those are truths, and they're things that need to be addressed, and hopefully going forward we can address those issues and make them better. But I think we also have to look at the positives, like I said, with why I love to live here, and remind ourselves of that. So you take the good with the bad. We might not have high-speed internet readily available today, but like I said, we can, we live on 3 acres and we can go do what we want and have our space to breathe.
I think what I'd like to go with is, I mean, you go back in history and what 98% of the population were farmers, and now it's, I don't know, I'm probably dated a little, but 2% of the population is, our farmers are directly related with ag. And that kind of shift generally isn't because the job is easy. If it was easy, it wouldn't be 2% or less. It's a very difficult profession. And just remember that when you're, if someone's struggling or you're having a hard time or trying to figure out, well, it's not an easy job. And, remember that it's not always going to go real smooth. And many people have been doing this for a long time, and just, give yourself a lot of credit for doing something that's extremely difficult and where a lot of it's, for the most part, out of your control, weather and markets and equipment failure and things like that. So, if you're kind of having a hard time, remember, look at the things that you love about doing this, and you're, I don't know, maybe you got a son or daughter or a neighbor kid or a grandchild or something in a tractor with you, or like, was stated earlier, when the rest of the world's falling apart, we can go out in the backyard and dig for worms or something, right? I mean, there's a lot of really good stuff, and a lot of good things about what we do every day. And I think sometimes it gets hard to, focus on those instead of the negative. And I guess I just want to say, it's not easy. It's pretty darn cool, but just remember that, when you're kind of struggling, that, all right, I've done it for a long time. The average age of a farmer's quite a bit older than I am, I mean, so you've done it. You just, step back and do what you're good at, and, just keep moving forward.
Thank you for those tidbits and takeaways. I certainly appreciate them, and they resonate pretty readily with me personally and professionally as well. So thanks for taking time this evening, Rita, Ashley, and Dave, to share your rural access and wellness experience. And hopefully, I'm certain actually that your stories will impact others, and you've really brought some great resources to the table that I hope they can utilize in their own communities throughout the countryside. Thanks for being a part of the Farmers After Hours series. We really appreciate it. In the next few weeks, there'll be mini sessions that sort of focus on rural access subject matter pertaining to healthcare, broadband, mental health, and then talking about resources in each of those spaces. So don't hesitate to tune into Michigan Farm Bureau's YouTube channel to see those recordings, or on our Facebook. And we'll sort of capstone this Farmers After Hours Rural Access Wellness in You with a panel of the experts who provide those mini sessions on May 5th at 7 p.m. back here on WebEx. Everyone for tuning in, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day, evening, whatever time we find you. I hope that it's fantastic. Thanks so much.